Social awareness is understanding how you impact the people around you and how the people around you impact you. I ended up taking a step back from work, got into therapy because I was having daily debilitating panic attacks. Are you aware of your facial expressions, your tone, your body language, the assumptions that you make, the expectations that you place on people? When you experience any kind of trauma, it doesn't have to be sexual abuse, it doesn't have to be physical abuse, it doesn't have to, right? That's trauma from my perspective. All of us have been through difficult things as young adults, and that experience created a subconscious operating program that most of us are not even aware is there.
Welcome, everybody. I just want to remind you that the platform is available and it is your space to interact with us today. Please, please, I love interaction. Our guests love interaction. So share your comments, just say hello, tell us what you think, and feel free to ask any and all questions via the platform. Our topic today is mastering emotional intelligence and how we can elevate our own personal brand for success, our success, customer success, and team success. So mastering emotional intelligence. And I'd like to quickly introduce my guest, Jenelle Friday. Welcome. She is a passionate advocate for emotional intelligence, and you have a mission to transform one heart at a time through your work with tactical emotional quotient education, EQ education. Such important work. You have a background that is deeply rooted in understanding human behavior, and you specialize in helping professionals by unlocking their power of self-awareness and self-management. And all of this is helping to make meaningful connections. And connections are all that we strive to accomplish in the field of customer success, right?
Yes.
You are also the founder of Lionheart CS. It is a solo venture dedicated to empowering business professionals, and you have created many impactful programs: the Lionheart Method, transforming EQ into actionable growth. And your approach is basically centered on breaking down EQ concepts into actionable, relatable steps. You are a keynote speaker, you lead workshops, and you host the Friday Feelings podcast. But if I'm not mistaken, you are intending to do a little bit more with podcasts, and we'll talk about that during the course
Yeah.
of our conversation. So
Yeah.
um, once again, welcome. I could go on. Your reputation definitely precedes you. Share with us a little bit about your journey to Lionheart CS. What led to the
Yeah.
foundation of Lionheart CS, and why Lionheart?
Yeah. My journey, honestly, I was kind of stuck in a very atypical loop of kind of how I was raised to be. I was raised in a very conservative Christian household, oldest of three. I was kind of that typical A church kid. However, most of my teenage and 20s, I was self-mutilating, self-harming, suicidal, couldn't really tell you why. I just kind of figured something was wrong with me, to be honest with you. And it was an internal battle. In 2020, not COVID related. I had a really big summer. I turned 40. I finished my bachelor's degree. I started a master's degree program. I got married. My stepdaughter left for military training. And then 6 weeks after our wedding, the truth bomb dropped in my family that my dad is actually a serial child molester. I was his first with many to follow, and I had no idea. And it blew up my life. I had a massive panic attack. I had to be hospitalized. I pulled a Britney Spears and buzzed all my hair off in a moment. Like, I became unglued because he was my person in our family. We were really close. And I ended up taking a step back from work, got into therapy because I was having daily debilitating panic attacks. And in therapy, my therapist handed me a book about emotional intelligence. I'd never heard the concept or the term before. I finished that book in the same day because it was like blinders had been lifted and a electric current was running through my body of like, oh my gosh. Because I'd been going back to review the things my dad did, the things my dad said, my experiences with him through a completely new lens. And the realization I was not self-aware at
Mhm.
all. I all of a sudden realized, my dad used to say things like, if you love Jesus, everything you say is true. Uh, I've had an incredible career in CS. I've had an amazing opportunities, but I've also found myself burning bridges with people, losing my control of my emotions and saying things and doing things that I'm like, why did I do that? And not even really being able to quantify what my driver was. Well, now I had a driver. Now I had this realization of like so much of my behavior is subconsciously programmed and it's been there for my entire life. And so I just started consuming everything I could get my hands on about EQ, from Daniel Goleman to Simon Sinek to positive psychology. I wanted a different life for myself because I felt like the first 40 years of my life I'd been living under a dark cloud that I didn't even know was there. And now all of a sudden it was like a light bulb went on and I'm going, I need to change. I need to change. And for all the reading I was doing, my struggle was how? How do I become self-aware? How do I manage these emotions that rage out of control? How do I do that? Well, I'd also been coaching and mentoring through customer success now for several years, and I began to share what I was learning with these individuals who were trusting me and a huge part of my life. And they kind of said, you need to scale this because the way that I'm able to be vulnerable and share my story to kind of help people understand I'm not just another uh I'm not just another preacher. I'm not just right. I come from a place of genuine, authentic. I understand what it means to not know who you are. I understand what it means to feel depressed and overwhelmed and out of control without really the tools to figure out, well, how do I fix this? So
Mhm.
I started to look up terms of who I am: passionate, tenacious, a little bit stubborn, very outspoken. Um, I wanted to live boldly, and I found the term Lionheart. It means bold and courageous. And you can't see behind me, but there's a massive canvas of a male lion I already had. And so it was kind of like well, that was sort of meant to be. So Lionheart CS has a primary focus, a singular focus, and it is to raise awareness about what emotional intelligence is. It is not being nice to people. It is not holding hands and singing kumbaya in a circle with people and talking about your feelings. Emotional
Mhm.
intelligence at its core is being able to answer the question, who are you? So if I said, Rajuta, remove your spouse, your kids, your job, your hobbies, those are labels. And I ask you the
Mhm.
question, who are you? A lot of people cannot answer that question because we've not been challenged to that degree before, really. We don't really know the terms or the concepts that we would use to talk about who we are. But
Mhm.
what teaches us is that when you don't have a grip on who you are, it means
Yeah.
that you don't understand what drives you. You don't understand why you have the emotional triggers that you have or where they come from. And so you're going through life, and when something stressful happens, when there's conflict, you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants. And
Mhm.
that's fine for some people, but I don't want to live that way anymore. And I think a lot of people don't want that. And so
Mhm.
I want to raise awareness first and foremost because there's so many resources that you can plug into about emotional intelligence. And I'm just one of those resources now that is trying to offer people the freedom to get out of their own way, an emotional safe place to be vulnerable and authentic and safe so that they can begin to really unpack difficult things about themselves that they want to change and how to go about that.
Yeah. Wow. Just wow, what a powerful, powerful story. And congratulations to you for coming to terms with everything
Mm.
and coming out positive from all of it. I think that's where the reality hits us, right? How we take um, everything in stride, how we take control and decide I am the driver of my life from here on out
Yes.
versus having circumstances and uh, others decide for me what I'm going to be or what I should
Yes.
be. So I think you have a truly powerful story. And the fact that you're able and willing to even share it for everybody to come to terms with their own story, I think that speaks volumes about your leadership. Um, you
Mhm.
talk about conquering Mount Everest. You clearly have your own climbs. Everybody has their own climbs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
you've already shared what changed your life and what have you heard from people. How does dealing with what is your audience, or what are your students, what are your whoever you talk to, what are you hearing about
Yeah.
their own clients?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm going to say trauma is relevant. When you
Yes.
use that word trauma, I talk a lot about how when we're younger, when we're in our before 10-year-old, mid teenage years, those are our most formidable years, right?
Mhm.
IQ is developed early on. EQ, however, is developed. And when you experience any kind of trauma, it doesn't have to be sexual abuse. It doesn't have to be physical abuse. It doesn't have to, right? That's trauma from my perspective. But all of us have been through difficult things as young adults, and that experience created a subconscious operating program that
Mhm.
most of us are not even aware is there, right? So the people that I meet that are battling through insecurity, imposter syndrome, not knowing how to work through all of these negative emotions and the intrusive thoughts and screaming at themselves in their mind, not knowing how to break that and get out of that. Um, it's a lot, Rajita. It's a
Yeah.
lot of people because self-confidence is the lowest it's ever been. We have
Mhm.
created, unfortunately, a society that likes to numb things through
Mhm.
media, through pick your vice, food, alcohol, drugs. I mean, there's all these things that it's we see those commercials. Oh, you have this symptom, add one more medication, right? And
Mhm.
then my husband and I were watching this commercial the other day for a new medication, and like the list of side effects, I'm like, is
Yes.
the thing that the medication is going to
Oh,
do worth all of the side effects that come with it? But that's, I mean, it's difficult. So look, it's difficult to face your memories. It's difficult to face the people and the things that have happened to you that have ripped you apart. I mean, what
mhm.
happened to me, I had a suicide attempt. I'm so grateful that
Mhm.
I survived it, and my husband and my family are the reason that I got through that. But
Mhm.
reality is that we all have trauma to some degree, and it
Mhm.
shapes us. And so what I'm finding, and my audience is mostly business professionals. Right now, it's in customer success
Mhm.
because that's the industry that I've been in for the last decade and more. Um, it's hard. And when you face those things, it invokes all of these negative emotions. And the reason people don't face it is because they don't know what to do with those
Mhm.
emotions. We're not proactively training and educating people that, hey, if you're going to go back and face maybe a parent who screamed at you growing up and you hate conflict and you're stressed out all the time, yeah, it's hard to go back to that memory because you feel insecure and you feel angry and you feel abandoned and you feel, all of these emotions. But the truth is that when you don't face it, when you just allow it to continue to impact the way that you think, our thoughts influence our emotions drive our behavior. You stay a victim, and that's the decision I had to make. Is the thing that happened with my dad horrible? Yeah, it was horrible. He's not in my life. We don't have a relationship. I've opened the door to try and not make peace, but find some sort of peaceful resolution. Um, It's hard, but when you don't face it, it just becomes a weed that spreads itself through all of the areas of your life, and you'll see that pop up, right? So it could be passive aggressiveness, it could be conflict, it could be you losing your temper or letting emotions get the better of you in a circumstance, and you look back and go, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why does that bother me so much? And when you can't
Mm-hmm.
answer that
Hmm.
question, most people go, and they keep moving forward because we're
Yeah.
all burned out. We're all overworked. We're all overwhelmed. Political climate is terrible. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many factors that draw our attention away from ourselves, and it's
Yeah.
sometimes uncomfortable. So, I mean, that's the individuals that I'm reaching out to that I work with because I'm not a therapist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not going to fix your problems, but I help provide materials, questions, structure and strategy to how to begin that journey of asking the question, who are you, to come to a genuine honest answer. And even if you don't like the answer, which I didn't. When I realized
Yeah.
who I was to my core, I was
Yeah.
mortified. I was so superior. I was so judgmental. I was so black and white.
Yeah.
I needed to change. And that's where it starts is acknowledging, yeah, I'm not really thrilled with what I find. I want something
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
Thank you, because this leads me into the segue that I want to talk about is the four pillars or the competency, the core competencies of
Yeah.
EI. And you've studied all of this now.
Yeah.
Talk to us about those four core competencies.
Sure. So I would say there's two primary categories. There's loving yourself, and I'm going to use the word love. I don't care if it makes you
Yeah.
uncomfortable. It's the truth. Okay, so there's two pillars that focus on loving yourself, and it is self-awareness and self-management. So self-awareness is understanding who you are. Like I said, your motivators, your drivers, your filters, your perspectives, your approach to life. Self-management is the practice of
Mhm.
managing your emotions. And it's not just talking to yourself. There are actually proven scientific methodologies that we're going to talk about in a minute. I learned the butterfly hug or squeezing your thumbs in your palms, or like there's multiple things that have been proven effective because self-management is, in my opinion, the ability to manage the physical reaction your body has to negative, toxic emotions. We
Mhm.
love the positive emotions. Don't need to teach you how to
Yeah.
deal with the positive
Yeah.
emotions,
Yeah.
right? It's the negative emotions. So emotions, period, are energy in your body. Emotions come from your thoughts, and we'll get into that a little bit more. So those are the two kind of focus on you. So then the pillar, um the other, what did I say? Two primary focus,
So
the other focus,
love yourself is the
love
first
yourself
one, and then the
and love
second one,
others
and
is love
love others.
others.
Yeah.
And so those two pillars are social awareness and relationship management. So social
Mhm.
awareness is understanding how you impact the people around you and how the people around you impact you. Are you aware
Mm.
of how you come across to people? Are you aware of your
Mhm.
facial expressions, your tone, your body language, the
Mhm.
assumptions that you make, the expectations that you place on people, right? Relationship management, which is what I would say is what customer success is, right? Is then the
As
ability
always.
to build and maintain healthy relationships. Healthy relationships include conflict. Healthy relationships include misunderstandings. And so this is not the removal of emotions. It's not the, oh, well, you're talking about sunshine and rainbows 24/7. No, not at all. It's the ability to successfully navigate through life, through difficult
Mhm.
people, through difficult circumstances, and maintain your own sense of self, conviction, morals, values, and
Mhm.
approach situations through real empathy, mutual respect, and kindness.
And you have experienced this, right? Not the sunshine and rainbows, but actually
Yeah.
actually having to deal in a workplace
Yeah.
situations where you wanted to show or feel like, hey, I'm the one in charge, but this is how I'm coming across. Share that story with us, your experience with a salesperson. I think I heard that and I said, I almost fell off my chair because these experiences are so close, hitting so close to home.
Yeah, so at a corporate job, I was a customer success manager managing, large enterprise accounts, and there was an outage. So corporate sent an email to all the CSMs and said, send this email to all of your customers.
Mhm,
I am someone who believes in inclusivity, and if I'm going to communicate a requirement to a customer, I'm going to loop in all of my team members. So my account executive, my SDR, BDR, my technical account manager, all the people assigned to the account. So that's what I did. Sent all this email to everybody, CC'd all the team members, and within 5 to 10 minutes, I get a response back from an individual that I'd never met before. And
mhm,
they said basically, before you send another communication to this customer, you need to run it by me first because there is conflict in this account, and I don't want anything else to potentially derail this relationship. And I have to tell you, Rijuta, I sat back in my chair and I was like, who do you think you
me?
are?
Are
I'm
you
the
talking about me?
CSM. I don't run anything by you. Are you kidding me? I was irritated. And
Mm,
so I responded out of irritation. And I responded with, first of all, I don't need to run anything by you. I'm the CSM on the account. I should be
mhm,
aware if there's conflict in this account. I responded clearly frustrated and a little bit superior, really rude.
mhm,
So she brought her manager in who went to my manager. My manager sent me down and was like, what are you doing? Isn't your brand kindness? And I was like, yeah. She goes, then what just happened? I was
mhm,
really, I mean, and after the fact, obviously, when we remove ourselves from the emotion, I looked at my response and I was like, I was horrified at my response. That individual I attempted to make peace with, she basically said she never wanted to work with me again. And I can't really blame her. I mean, I think forgiveness is important in life, but I can't force that. And it was a learning lesson for me of like, wow, when I respond out of emotion, negative
mhm,
emotion, it is a mistake. And it's okay to write an email that gets your emotion out and you sit back, walk away, breathe, come
mhm,
back to
mhm,
it and reassess. But
mhm,
that I remember that event very specifically because it really was it was like shining a spotlight on my behavior going, this is not okay. You can't
mhm.
build a professional network. You cannot build a career. Your personal brand is damaged by this. And if you want the kind of career and the life and be the person that you say you are, these are the kind of things that cannot continue to happen.
So true. We don't realize, and there was an interesting statistic I read about when I started reading up on emotional intelligence and understanding your own behaviors. Um, 95% of us feel like we are self-aware. What is the real number, Janelle?
It's probably more like 25 to 30%
Yeah, yes,
because we don't understand what that term
I,
means.
yeah. That is correct. I mean, that is correct, meaning I wasn't trying to trip you up. I was simply asking from your
Yeah.
expertise
Yeah.
what you have experienced in this regard. I
Yeah.
agree. We feel like we know who we are. We feel like we are responding right, but it's always an inside out approach. Here's what I'm feeling, and this is what I'm going to project on the situation, on the person, on anything. And it
Hmm.
totally damages the relationship that we say we are trying to protect, or
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
we are safeguarding that relationship with our internal customers, our teammates, our external customers, and we do the exact opposite of what we intend to do.
Yeah.
Correct?
Well, and to your point, self-awareness, I mean, I could say I've had people tell me when I talk, I don't
Yeah,
smile and I come across aggressive and
yeah,
dominating and right.
yeah,
So, do I need to be aware of my face? Absolutely. That is part of self-awareness, right?
yeah,
I would almost classify that as social awareness, how I impact others. But
yeah,
it's not enough to say, well, I know how I feel, so I'm self-aware.
yeah.
Why do you feel that way? The level of self-awareness I'm talking about is your ability to say, well, I'm feeling this way. Why am I feeling this way? Because if you have unresolved emotions, if you have unmanaged emotions that are driving that emotion that you feel today, it's
Mhm.
possible and most likely that the reason you feel angst, the reason you feel uncomfortable, the reason you feel aggressive or disappointed or offended has nothing to do with the situation you're in. It's an
Mhm.
emotion that was triggered by something that happened to you or an experience that you had in your previous life that has popped up in this circumstance and is driving your behavior today. Being self-aware, ask the question, why am I feeling this way? And where does this emotion really stem from? That's
Mhm.
the self-awareness I'm talking about.
Okay. Wow. Um, so then the journey to personal growth begins with self-awareness.
It does.
And we also have this, but there's also self-doubt. So how do we deal with both? Meaning, if we are self-aware and there is a residual feeling of experience, I mean, a whole host of experiences that we've gone through that we then realize, doesn't that compound the self-doubt? Doesn't that lead to more of the imposter syndrome that we
It
experience?
yes, if you don't
Okay.
do something about it.
Okay.
The thing
Okay.
that I stress to all of my students, to anybody who wants to talk to me is what is the definition of insanity?
Yeah.
Repeating the same thing, living the
Yeah.
same life over and over and expecting something different. So,
Yeah.
what I tell people is if you don't like the current mental state that you're in, if you're tired of imposter syndrome, if you're tired of self-doubt, work doesn't happen in the mind. You can think about something and go, well, I'm not going to do that next time. But if you don't
Hmm.
get it out of your brain, if you don't get it out of your head onto a sticky note, into a gratitude journal, take a walk, go do meditation, go do yoga, get it out, then it stays and it stirs and it's mold over and it builds and it, right? So
Hmm.
if you're in a position where you do have self-doubt, I have so many different exercises that I have deployed in my own life that now I'm teaching others to do because
Yeah.
the one thing that I stress the most is the mind body connection. So I want to dig into that a
Yeah.
little bit to kind of explain. You have a thought, and the thought in the morning could be, I don't think anybody understands me. I'm not good enough. No one values me, right? That single
Hmm.
thought triggers a nerve in your nervous system. That nerve produces chemicals to the rest of your nervous system that goes, "Oh, well, I'm depressed, I'm sad, I'm unmotivated, nobody likes me, I'm in the depths of despair." All of those nerves now generate chemicals that create emotions. Your
Hmm.
thoughts literally create the emotions that you feel, and your emotions, as we know, drives your behavior. So when you look at that pattern, to ask me where do you start, how do you change it? It starts right here. And there is science. There's a study titled TRTTP, which is the proven science behind the words that you speak
Hmm.
change the gray matter in your brain. The gray matter
Oh.
is a it's called, referred to as neuroplasticity. So it
Hmm.
flexes, it molds, it takes in new information, and it impacts the chemical makeup of your brain. So literally, when people talk about meditation,
Hmm.
I not just do meditation, but I have specific things that I read aloud every single day. I
Yeah.
read it because it's my words coming out of my mouth. And the other kicker to this scientific approach is the more senses you involve in your practices of self
Hmm.
affirmation, the
Hmm.
stronger that new neural pathway becomes. So think of it like you're in a field of of tall grass and you've been carving your path in this field for a long time. The grass has been matted, maybe there is no grass left in the path. That's what you know. So that's what your brain does. And until you do
Yeah.
something to get the brain out of that pattern, you can
Yeah.
think all you want. You can pray and meditate all you want, but it doesn't do anything.
But it's going to, yeah.
Right. So, how do we create new paths? Well, by reading something out loud, I'm seeing it, speaking it, and hearing it. Those are three
Hmm.
senses.
Hmm.
I do the butterfly tap, which we can talk about. That's a
Hmm.
physical interruption of the nervous system, and it's a physical. reinforcement of what I'm doing, I light a candle. That's smelling.
Mm-hmm.
I have five senses involved in this practice. It's 15 minutes a day, right? It what it does, it's you're creating a new path in that field of grass that your brain is going to continue to forge, but it doesn't get very far if you only do it for 1 or 2 days. It's a
Yeah.
daily practice that if you commit to and resolve yourself that I'm not sure I believe this, I think this might be a crock. Right, I might not even believe the things that I'm saying. Like I would start by saying, I am resilient. I am abundantly loved. I am strong. I'm bold and courageous. And I would have days where I'm like, I don't believe any of those things. Right. But I do it anyway because the science tells me that by just saying the words, my neural pathway brain is listening and
Yeah.
responding with that new pathway, reinforcing that new pathway that I'm creating.
So you mentioned the butterfly tap. You want to tell us what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was the tool I was taught in therapy. It's under the title of EMDR therapy, which is based on rapid eye movement. So you can read and go research that. The butterfly hug is a nervous system interrupter. So this side of your brain controls this side of your body, and vice versa. So when
Mm-hmm.
you I cross my thumbs because it holds my thumbs together, and I put my hands here. The
Mm-hmm.
butterfly hug, it starts with a safe place mentally. So if you close your eyes and take yourself to a place that is safe, beautiful, peaceful, it's just you. We
Mm-hmm.
start there. And then we practice through controlled breathing, which is in through your nose and out through your mouth, because that regulates the heartbeat. It keeps the lungs calm and it keeps our mind in a very safe, calm place. And then you
Mm-hmm.
begin to tap. When the taps begin, your nervous system is now paying attention to this tap because it's on the wrong side of the body. This
Mm-hmm.
arm, controlled by this side of the brain, should tap here. That's what the brain is. Yeah. When it's on this side of the body, the brain goes, "Oh, wait, wait, that's the wrong. What's happening?" So what
Mm-hmm.
you're doing is your nervous system responds to your emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you take control of the nervous system and you force it to pay attention to the taps and you partner that with reading something out loud, you're reprogramming your nervous system. The other thing a butterfly hug does, is it disconnects emotions from memories. So my therapist would have me be in the butterfly hug and I would have to go back now through all of these horrible memories. Sorry, these horrible memories with my dad, the
Mm-hmm.
abuse memories. And I was terrified. I canceled on her a couple weeks because I just didn't want to go there. But after going through that experience with the butterfly hug, I've been able to confidently go backwards into those
Mm-hmm.
memories. And I'm teary now to share it because it's hard to share. But I can go back now and I'm not afraid to go back to those memories because I've removed the emotion. I've removed the sorrow and the despair and the betrayal, all of those negative, toxic things. I've
Mm-hmm.
disconnected them because that's what the butterfly hug does. I go through those memories, and instead of the emotions of those memories overwhelming me, my nervous system is paying attention to the tapping, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
complete disconnect. And so
Mm-hmm.
I've learned this practice, and again, your body likes habits. So now when I
Mm-hmm.
do this, my whole body goes, "Oh yeah, I know what we're doing." And it just immediately relaxes because I've trained it to do that.
Yeah, so when you are experiencing an overwhelming, your mind is getting overcome with all of those negative emotions, you
Yep.
use the butterfly tap as a way to interrupt your own mind from
Exactly.
going there. That
Exactly.
that is
And
amazing.
it doesn't have to, because okay, so let's just be honest. You're sitting in a meeting, maybe you're in an all hands meeting, maybe you're in a one-on-one, and you start to feel angst, and
Yeah,
the other part of self-awareness is knowing how your body is going to tell you it's overwhelmed, right? You have
yeah,
to know your body's cues. My chest gets tight, my stomach is upset, my palms are sweaty. I can't do this in a meeting.
yeah.
Right? So your nervous system actually crosses at your pelvis. So you can take
Mhm,
your flat palms and put them on top of your thighs and tap this way. You don't have to cross your hands. It does the same
mhm.
thing. Another exercise is put your thumbs in your palms and squeeze back and forth. Same
Mm,
process. So I've taught the butterfly hook to people and they're like, yeah, that didn't do anything for me. But the squeezing of their palms or their thumbs did. So
mm.
this is the call to action is figure out what works for you. This is my
Yeah.
recipe. Find your recipe.
Just so true. Find your recipe. All right, you ready for a few questions? The
Yeah,
platform
let's do it.
is absolutely flying off the handle. I love it. Okay, here's the first one. What in your opinion, why do you think, in your opinion, people lack EI? Is it the lack of empathy, or do you have to put yourself in the other person's shoes to understand? So, what's your
It's
take
a
on
good
that?
question. Yeah. So I think most of us have been in a circumstance where we've heard someone tell their story, and what do we say? I know exactly how you feel. I went through the same thing a year ago. What
Mm-hmm.
I've come to understand and what emotional intelligence teaches us is you will never understand what someone else goes through. So here's my example. My 11-year-old nephew, 2 years ago, their football team went to the playoffs and they lost. It was 2 or 3 years in a row. They got to the final and they didn't win. How my nephew experienced that was completely different than how a team member experienced that. So even though they
Mm-hmm.
went through the same thing, both boys had a completely different experience and it affected them in completely different ways. So,
Yeah.
real empathy is the ability to hear someone become emotional and listen to their experience and say, I understand what it feels like to be frustrated. I understand what it feels like to feel overwhelmed and out of control and offended or whatever it might be. I don't
Yeah.
think we're being taught from an early age through our teenagers in schools, even through business and educational training, how to truly empathize with someone else. Because the truth is that if you felt the emotion that they're feeling, you're empathizing, right?
You're
And
empathizing.
and
Yeah.
understanding how to approach that. And know too, you'll never understand why someone else does things the way they do. You'll never understand why do they think that way? Why on earth do they think that's okay? I wasted hours trying to understand my dad, this man
Mm-hmm.
who was a leader in church, raised his hands in praise and worship, preached and judged. But the truth is, I will never understand. And so rather
Mm-hmm.
than waste that energy, that mental energy, it's accepting that, well, I'm not going to understand. I can seek to understand, but I probably won't. But I can
Mm-hmm.
absolutely empathize with some of the emotions that he experienced that led to him becoming the person that he did. I think that's the difference.
Cool. Um, so Preeti asks, that was a great question. Thanks, Balaji. Now,
Right.
Preeti asks, what are some practical steps to improve self-awareness in high pressure environments?
Yeah. Well, high pressure environments are sometimes the areas in life that show us who we really are if we're not in
Mhm.
control of our emotions. So, the practice of self awareness begins with the question, who are you? And that question, if you answer, well, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a CEO, I'm a skier, right? None of
Mhm.
those things are true about you because at any point, all of those things could change, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So the question about who are you is how do you handle stress? How do you think about yourself on a regular basis? How do you talk to yourself? How do you look at other people and engage and interact with other people? And if you're in a high pressure situation and you can't answer those questions or you're not confident in those questions, what that means
Mhm.
is the emotions that you feel are going to pop up and probably be more visceral than you want them to be because you don't at your core know, who am I? What are my values that I'm going to commit to? How do I make decisions and speak to the person I'm going to be, whether I feel
Yeah.
like it or not? Because if our thoughts create emotions and you can't trust your thoughts because imposter syndrome is screaming at you, are your
Yeah.
emotions valid? Well, yes, but are they appropriate? Are they rooted in
Yeah.
truth? No. So the thing I would say is I teach a concept that says to capture a thought. So the
Yeah.
thought could be I'm sitting in a corporate meeting, it's high pressure, I'm terrified that I'm going to screw up this presentation, right? Maybe
Yeah.
that's been a struggle. You capture that thought and you ask, is it true? Have I screwed up presentations in the past? Have I
Yeah.
have I prepared for today well enough and put all my time and energy to do the best presentation I can? Is that thought uplifting? Is it encouraging and
Mm-hmm.
positive towards who you are and the circumstance you're in? And is it helpful? Is it helpful to sit in a corporate meeting and have this intrusive thought that you're going to screw up helping you in the current circumstances? If the answer is no, you're going to remove
Mm-hmm.
that thought. But here's the kicker: to remove a thought, you have to have something to replace it with, right? You can't just say,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to ignore it." That's not enough because again, the work doesn't happen just in your brain. You have to then be able to say, sit in yourself and go, "No, I'm going to ace this. I'm good." Whatever you have to do, replace that thought with something positive. And so that results in a exercise that I call the I am statement. I encourage people to take an hour, turn music on if you want, sit in silence, but begin to write the truths about who you are on a piece of paper. Then you're going to post that piece of paper in your office. I have statements on my bathroom mirror in my master bathroom that I continually reinforce to myself because my emotions, I cannot trust my emotions. And I cannot always trust the thoughts that I have. So I'm going to reinforce that by writing it down so that I know who and what I am at all times.
Great tips, great tips. Let's do one more question, and then I wanted to ask you how to tie it all into customer success, because those are
Yeah.
the professionals that you work with. So let's
Yeah.
do one more question, and then we'll go there. And then I would love to get through the questions, but if we run out of time, I will share those with you, Janelle, and please
Yeah,
send me the
happy to.
responses so that I can post them to the platform. So,
Yeah.
okay, here's the next one. What are the most common emotional blind spots in professionals, and how can they be addressed? Oh, wow. This is a fantastic question. Thanks, Sri.
Fantastic question. Let me think about that for a second. I think fear is a massive
Mm-hmm.
emotion that we don't talk about a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And truthfully, in my opinion, fear is the root emotion that leads to other emotions. So if I'm afraid
Yeah.
of something, I'm going to become insecure. If I'm afraid
Yeah.
of something, I'm going to lash out and be more aggressive and dominant to prove that I know what I'm talking about. I'm
Yeah.
afraid, I'm fearful, so I'm going to be this, right? I think fear is the unaddressed emotion that we all share, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
I think frustration. I know that there are a lot of managers that have been promoted because they performed, they've been promoted for other reasons, and they have not been trained how to
Yeah.
mentor, how to coach, how to help.
Yeah.
And so I talk to so many people that are stuck in a role with a manager that doesn't really know how to manage, and they feel angry and frustrated and invisible
Yeah.
and devalued. And right, we do not have healthy corporate practices when it comes to emotional health. We just don't. I think we're beginning to catch on to that, but it's a big gap, which is another reason why I'm trying to be more vocal to help encourage people to embrace this. But from a corporate emotional standpoint, there's a lot of triggers at work. There's
Yeah.
offensive things that are said. There are, and my husband is a sales executive, so I can say this, but there are people that have come from sales that behave in ways that are mortifying to me. Yelling, swearing, being verbally aggressive, being demanding, bullying. That is still happening in corporate America today. And all of that behavior drives insecurity, it drives fear. And so if you find yourself with those emotions and in that situation, my question to you is, what can you do about it? Can you get rid
Yeah.
of your manager? Can you fire the CEO or the sales executive? Probably not. You can
Yeah.
control you. You can control how you feel about it by asking the questions about your thoughts. Is it true? Is it uplifting? And is it helpful? And if the answer is no, that's where your I am statement comes in. And that's where you have to physically disrupt your
Yeah.
body's response to those negative emotions.
Powerful, powerful tips. And you mentioned leadership and EI. You are right. We don't give as much weightage to emotional intellect, or equipping our leaders with the knowledge about coming to terms with their own emotional quotients. And so
Yeah.
you're right. We do see a little bit of difference in how um, first time leaders perform because they are still grappling or coming to terms with how to actually connect
Mm.
with their teams beyond just the performance metrics.
Well, and I
Uh,
think we're seeing stress come out in negative ways. So if you
yeah.
take a step back, if you're and we can talk about how this evolves or affects customer success, but if you take a step back from your leadership team and look at it from their perspective, this is where the empathy piece comes in. Do you
Mhm,
understand what's driving them? Are you sitting in board meetings? Do
mhm,
you
mhm,
understand the bottom line, the profit and
mhm.
loss report? Do you know the expectations and the pressures and the weight that those individuals carry, and that all of that affects their ability to lead, their ability to
Yeah,
express and
yeah,
manage their own emotions? And if you're holding them on this pedestal of, well, he's a CEO, he should know better, or man, my sales leader is just a jerk, I don't understand how he keeps his job.
yeah.
Again, you're
But there's
judging,
something
you're passing
driving.
judgment,
Yes.
and you're not giving grace and room to ask yourself, I wonder what they're going through. I don't think I
Mm-hmm.
understand what they're going through. Can you
Mm-hmm.
forgive and can you give grace? And can you say, man, I don't know, but I can come to that individual through kindness and mutual respect so that our interactions are positive, and be a good positive influence yourself, because you're not going to change that person, but you can absolutely contribute to the environment of your workplace by
Yeah.
being true to who you are, knowing your values, and being self-aware.
So tying that in now to customer success, that outside in approach, understanding what is driving behaviors, whether it is your own
Uh,
teammates, how does all of this impact team dynamics? How do we become better at serving our customers through all of this?
it's a good question. And I think we have to begin by acknowledging that it is never just business,
Mm-hmm.
ever, unless it's a computer talking to a computer that is transactional, right? Business run by human beings will always be emotional, because we as people, when we have a conversation, those conversations are never free from emotion.
Yeah.
Ever, right? So if you're an individual who doesn't know who you are, doesn't understand your emotions, you get caught off guard, your emotions are kind of taking over, and you're speaking with a customer, you're speaking with a team member, that your role in customer success is literally, you are the customer advocate. You are the person that the customer is trusting to communicate with you, to help when you've got something wrong, to listen to you vent when the product sucks, or the support team didn't respond correctly, or you're not happy with the price that your add-on is going to be. The customer expects you to handle all of that with
Mm-hmm.
grace, with an open ear, and to be their advocate. Well, that's one side of the coin. The other side of the
Mm-hmm.
coin to customer success is that you are not on an island. You're actually the catalyst to your company. You
Yeah.
represent product, support, sales, marketing, all of the above. You represent your
Yeah.
company. And so if you have negative emotions about the people that are part of all of those cross-functional teams,
Yeah.
there's an old proverb that says, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Meaning, even if I don't tell you that I can't stand you, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
know it by my facial expressions, by my tone, by my body language, by the phrases that I use. And so
Yeah.
if you've got all of that angst and drama and conflict happening with relationships internally, your customer feels it. That's
Yeah.
where we in customer success have such an incredible opportunity to be the front lines of our organization and step in the gap where there is a lack of emotional intelligence, where there is a lack of empathy, where there is a lack of understanding, and be that person in the gap to say, I'm going to continue to be this person with my
Yeah.
cross-functional teams, and realize I don't understand what they go through. I don't understand what a product guy does every day and what his pressures are and why he does what he does. And I don't
Yeah.
understand what's motivating the customer, because maybe I haven't asked. Or maybe I do understand what they're going through, but they're so aggressive that it offends me and I don't like conflict. That's
Yeah.
probably true for a lot of people. But you can't avoid conflict ever.
Yeah.
And you can't bury your sand. We're not ostriches. And the more you try to bury it, the worse it gets. So
Mm.
this is one of those things where in customer success, again, our position puts us in a unique spot to really impact our customer relationships
Mm-hmm.
and the culture that we work in. Just with our actions, our words, and our ability to give to come to circumstances and conversations with a true open mind. So what does that mean? It means that when I'm secure within myself, when I'm self-confident because I know who I am, I'm doing things that feed health and life and positivity into myself. That's who I am. When I come to this conversation, it doesn't matter your opinion, your emotions, your disagreements, your conflict. None of that
Yeah.
matters because I know who I am. It's okay for
Yeah.
us to have a disagreement because that's not going to impact myself at the end of the day. I'm not going to let conflict of someone else or aggression from someone else change my commitment to be respectful, kind, and empathetic. I want to say all of this, Rijuta, by telling you I fail a lot. So just because I know EQ, I have days where
Yeah.
if you met me, you're like, you're an EQ coach. And I'm like, not today. Today I'm a mess. Like this is not the absence of emotion. It's a journey. You're never gonna
Yeah.
arrive. This is not a prize to be won. Everything in life, all your experiences are going to constantly come put yourself in question.
Yeah.
Who am I in this circumstance? How do I want to behave in this circumstance? And that's where I've really come to understand that my resolve and my commitment to myself, my morals, my values, and my decision about who I want to be, who I'm going to be, means that you can't push me off course. And
Yeah.
that is what I think customers where I think customer success can truly make an impact.
Yeah, and very, very well said. We fail a lot more and then we learn from it. And I think
Yeah.
one small step to, well, not arriving, but at least having a little bit of control over our own, not reacting, but responding.
Mhm.
And there's a
And not
big
reacting
difference
because
between,
you're being
yeah,
proactive. You're not
yeah,
reacting, you're being proactive in the care of you, of your mind, of your thoughts, of your
yeah,
emotions, of your soul, that it's the driver. Your emotions drive everything. And so
yeah.
by understanding the mind-body connection, you have a choice to make. And literally, this is a call to action. If you don't take a step to do something different, then
Yeah.
don't expect anything to change.
Don't expect anything to change. Very true. So you did answer a question already on the platform. This is from Shantanu, and I'm just going to say the question, but I think you answered this. The importance of empathy in leadership and how it affects team dynamics and trust. And I think we answered this one. So thanks for that question, Shantanu. Here's
Yeah.
another one from Chandan. How can we balance the need for emotional authenticity with the professional expectations of emotional regulation, especially in high stress leadership roles?
Yeah, I think there's this misnomer that by allowing emotions into the workplace, that it's just going to wreak havoc and we're going to have people crying and our feelings are going to be, out of control. Empathy to me in a corporate business setting involves understanding and asking, being curious. So, do you know that people learn differently? Do you know
Mm-hmm.
that people have different levels and forms of communication? Do you know that people like to be recognized differently?
Yeah.
Are you aware that your team member is going through something difficult? Now, if you were my manager, Rajuta, and it was during the time when all this stuff with my dad happened, do you need the nitty gritty details? No,
Mm-hmm.
this is
No.
not
Yeah.
a vulnerable, pour my heart out, everything comes out. This is
Yeah.
communicating by saying, this thing is happening in my life, and I don't think I can be fully engaged. And I want to be here. I value my job, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
really struggling.
Yeah.
Should I have to come to you with that as my manager? Well, yes. But as a leader, are you paying attention to the cues that an employee is giving you that they're struggling? So,
Mm-hmm.
employee engagement through the lens of EQ is recognizing the signs that an employee is in trouble. It could be
Mm-hmm.
disconnecting. It could be a lack of communication. It could be body language. You're sitting back, you're not on camera, you're not engaged, you don't really care. There are so many ways to identify that employee is not engaged. As a company, as an organization, when you think about employee engagement, it's offering space for that individual to be vulnerable and become and stay safe. Meaning, If I'm
Mm-hmm.
afraid to tell you the truth because I might lose my job, you might look at
Mm-hmm.
me and judge me differently. That's
Mm-hmm.
not a place where empathy thrives. So,
Yeah.
leadership, looking at your team members, going, how do we create psychologically and emotionally safe places to
Yeah.
allow our human being employees to
Yeah.
be honest? Because, quite frankly, if we expect employees to never have drama, to never have conflict, to never have life altering circumstances happen and give them the space to go through it without
Yeah.
adding fear,
Yeah.
that's what we're going for. And granted, I say that, don't let an employee walk all over you, don't let an employee take advantage. Like there's limits to this. But it can
Mm-hmm.
begin small with like a feedback loop,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It can begin small with opening up safe places for people to come and be real with one another. I have so many examples of ways companies can begin to deploy emotional intelligent practices to
Mm-hmm.
improve employee
Mm-hmm.
engagement, because right now with AI and tech, we are stretching that line of disconnect from the human condition. And I think as
Yeah.
long as we are business people to people, we always need that human condition. And for all of our focus on customer success, we want to make sure our customers are happy. We want to make sure our customers are taken care of. We want to delight our customers.
Yeah.
Here's my challenge. Do you care about your employees the same way?
Yeah.
Do you understand that your employees are not going to be happy with a $1,500 stipend every year for continued education? That is not the definition
That's
of employee investment into their employees.
mm,
And if you're not comfortable being vulnerable, having open, honest conversations with your employees, then you need to check yourself, because you're
yeah.
operating as a robot. You're creating spaces that are distrustful. And when an employee does not feel like they can trust their employer,
Mm-hmm.
they pull away. Their work
Mm-hmm.
becomes
Mm-hmm.
less, they show up less, they're not motivated, they don't give you your best. And we're seeing
Yeah.
a massive result of that environment over the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
65% of employees tell have been counted as actively disengaged because they do not feel safe, they don't feel valued, they're not being listened to, and the
Mm-hmm.
overall message from their employer is, we'll find somebody else who'll do it.
Yeah. The check boxes, right? Everybody's just getting through the day, which
Yes.
yep,
Yes.
did this,
Yes.
and that's it. And emotional, I'll, uh, I'll, so you're literally putting a body in a seat to get through the day and not
Yes.
actually caring about
Caring
the
about
outcome.
that person. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
our this whole stance of like, well, we can't, emotions at work, stay professional. You're denying the very thing that makes us human. Our
yeah,
emotions are what
our
make us
emotions.
human. And when we bury them, when we ignore them, when we don't acknowledge them, then we confine people into these boxes. And that's why we're seeing a lack of engagement.
Janelle, I wish we had done a two-part series. Come back. I definitely want to talk. Before we
Yeah.
wrap up, let me read some of these questions. They are amazing. I will share these back to you. And please, when you have a minute, take some time, respond, and I can post them to the platform. Lovely questions from our audience here. So Jenny asks, what strategies can be used to develop emotional intelligence when working with clients or customers from diverse cultural backgrounds? Oh my God, this is like a
Great question.
truly loaded question. I don't
Yeah.
think we give enough. Everybody wants to be DEI savvy in the corporate world, and not everybody truly understands what that means. Um,
Correct.
um, Varun is asking, how do you measure EI and what tools do you recommend for professionals looking to assess their EQ? Great question. I'm about to come back to Janelle with the resources that she recommends or that are available to us. So hold that thought, Varun, for just a minute. Gayatri asks, can you explain the connection between EI and decision making in leadership? We sort of touched upon this, but that's also another fantastic question. And
We
then
could
a
do a whole
follow-up to
session
that.
on that question, Rajuta.
Yeah, 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 exactly. How can EI be developed in teams that work remotely or in hybrid settings? Another great questions. How do we let go of self-doubt? Fantastic
Mm,
question, Asad. And then Rahila asks, oh, well, this is a comment. Well, thank you, Rahila. What a great conversation this is, full of insights. Absolutely loved it. Thank you, Janelle and Rajuta. So thanks, Rahila, for that.
yeah.
Alicia says the same. She's thanking us for the session and commenting that it is fantastic. And then so is Chandan. Thank you for shining the light on an oft overlooked aspect of our professional lives. Um,
Mm,
I think this topic hits close to home. It touches a chord, definitely. We resonate with this because we are grappling with emotional needs of our own as we navigate, like you said, the very fast-paced world of corporations, like the business world.
yeah.
And not
Yeah.
everybody has the ability or even afforded by their own leadership or employers the ability to sit back, deal with it, understand yourselves, let alone understand your teams, let alone understand your customers. So it's you need a determined and an intentional leadership or management to make sure that you thrive as an employee. So talk to us
Mm.
about the resources that are available to us, and then very quickly, what's next for you? I like to end with what's one success takeaway. So three things, Janelle: resources, what's next for you, and
Yeah.
one success takeaway.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I listed resources, we'd be here for another hour. If you go and search emotional intelligence, there are so many resources to take assessments. Daniel Goleman's Positive Psychology.
Yes.
Simon Sinek is another voice that I listen to regularly. So, if it's something that's important to you, do the work, do some homework, and go find the group that works for you. Because I listen to other speakers. I'm like, yeah, that's not really my cup of tea. So again, go listen to somebody and decide if that's a resource that you want to listen to. But there's an endless supply of individuals and companies that are trying to put emotional intelligence back in. Talent EQ is another organization that I love and that I support on LinkedIn. They're a great resource for corporate business professional emotional intelligence practices and habits and advice that I really appreciate. And myself, obviously,
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
a resource as well. So there's lots of different ways to get involved. And I would say if it's important to you, you're going to find the resource that you most resonate with.
Awesome. So what's next for you? You mentioned you are a resource. So talk to us about
Yeah.
your upcoming podcast.
Yeah, so I have a new podcast launching in January called Friday Feelings.
Yeah.
It is a 25-minute audio podcast where myself and a guest will come and have an open conversation about the topic at hand. So, one of those topics, for example, would be the power of gratitude. So,
Mhm.
Priscilla Fletcher and I sat down and talked about how gratitude and how she implemented gratitude in her life made a dramatic impact on her own EQ. And so it's a live session, meaning it's not going to be edited. It's just going to be the real conversation. And I have all 52 weeks planned. And so it launches January 3rd. The best way to get involved, because I'm publishing the intro today, is to follow me on LinkedIn. And I will be
Mhm.
announcing all of that on LinkedIn. Um,
Mhm.
the Emotional Intelligent Boot Camp through Lionheart has been a 12-week program that I have been doing for the last year. I'm actually going to take a
Mhm.
different direction in 2025, and I'm creating an Emotional Intelligent Academy. There will be a module for each pillar of emotional intelligence that is self-paced. So you can sign up for one module or you could sign up for multiple. And then there's always the option in those modules to meet with me or to sit in on another live session with guest speakers that continue to give us the voice and the experiences, because this isn't
Yeah.
just a Janelle show. Actually, my entire business is built on the community of professionals who have supported me, encouraged me, loved me, and are just as passionate about emotional intelligence in their own lives and in their business models and in their leadership capabilities. So, um, you can go to JanelleFriday.com. I have a website there you can learn more about, or you can reach out to me directly that way. But that's just a few things I've got coming for the new year.
Fantastic. Do you have a takeaway for us as we wrap things up in 2024 and look forward to the new
Yeah,
year?
I
Uh,
do. Um, get off your couch. Get out of your seat. Don't let 2025 be another year that you wonder how to do something and you're not quite sure how to approach something. The point of everything I teach is that you have to do something different. So, whatever that is, because there are so many different things you can do to change up your routine, do one thing. Just pick
mhm,
one thing and stick with it for 30 days, 45 days, because you don't know until you try. And if you think that your employer is going to shift and make things better, if you think that your spouse or your family are going to all of a sudden change and those relationships are going to improve, none of that is
mhm,
true. We
mhm,
are only guaranteed ourselves, our actions, our emotions. And so if you want something different for yourself, do
mhm,
something about it. Don't just
mhm.
sit and listen. Go do something to help yourself.
Fantastic. On that note, I want to thank you, Janelle. This has been an amazing, amazing hour. I love our conversations. I am looking forward to continuing them. Thank you for
Me
taking the
too.
time
Yeah.
early in your morning and being with us on the platform.
It's been a pleasure. I love the relationship you and I are going to continue to build. And
Yes.
I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to share because, again, I think a lot of people are stuck and they don't really know where to turn or how to approach it. And so I just love being able to be a voice of encouragement and hope and relating that I'm a mess just like you
Mhm.
are. I have insecurities just like you do. I make mistakes all the time. And I
Yeah.
want to create a world where that part of the human being is allowed and loved and
Yeah.
cared for and accepted and forgiven and encouraged. So thank you so much for letting me come and share today.
What a fantastic message as we head into, or we are in the midst of the holiday season.
Yeah.
Thank you also to my audience for joining us in your respective time zone, whether it's late in the evening or really early in the morning or just the middle of your day. Thank you for joining us today. And most importantly, thank you to the Thinkly team. They
Yes.
are a
Thank
great
you.
team and they do a fantastic job of supporting me and all of our communities. So thank you to everybody. Happy
Yeah.
holidays. Have a
Merry
fantastic
Christmas.
rest of your Wednesday. And bye. We'll see you again on the platform.